Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Council Chambers on this beautiful December 4th afternoon. Today we have our Governance and Priorities meeting, committee meeting with Council and members of our staff and those that are attending in gallery and those that are watching via our live stream. Okay, members of Council, there's an agenda before you. Deputy Mayor, if I can have the motion, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. That the December 4th, 2023 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Administration, anything to add?
Nothing specific at this point, Your Worship.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and that is carried. Okay, before we move on to the agenda to number 3, there's a couple items that I'd like to address prior to that. The first thing is we have our fire department outside. As Council recalls, we had the Mad Red Ribbon ribbon campaign that kicked off a couple weeks ago. Our department was not able to attend, so we're going to do one tonight. We go out there, we tie the ribbons on. It's just to signify that it is the Christmas season. It is okay to have a beverage here and there, but please do not drink and drive. Every accident that is caused by an impaired driver is not an accident. It is a lot of poor judgment on many people's behalf. And then also, from my understanding as well, we'll do that, then we'll come back and there's some recognition for a couple of our council members. So members that are in the gallery and that are also watching online, council is still in session. We're just going to be walking outside to take a photo up with our fire department, and then we'll be right back. Okay. Council, you can grab your ribbon. Yeah, we're not walking out on everybody. We're just the camera can't follow us that way.
Thank goodness it's warmer.
It's only bylaw tickets though.
Huh? I know, but there's lots of bylaw tickets, obviously.
Oh, there. Just bring it to him. Oh, okay. That's a good deal.
Councilor answered. Oh, there she is. Okay, those that are in the gallery and those that were participating online, thank you for your patience. Again, I think I'll just mention to me that maybe some people do not understand what MAD is. So MAD is Mothers Against Drunk Driving. It's the part-time chapter out here, and we had a kickoff for the Red Ribbon campaign about 2 weeks ago. And again, just to reiterate, this is the time that we tend to get together and celebrate a little bit more, which is all right. Just make sure that you make a plan ahead so that you're not driving impaired, because all accidents that are caused by impaired drivers is not an accident. It is definitely a poor judgment on behalf of individuals and other people. Thank you for your time and indulgence. Moving on to another point of our agenda is that since the fire department is here, we have some recognition of 2 members of council that have provided service for our community. Chief? Yep, go ahead.
Hello? Is it on? Thank you for the opportunity to come to council tonight with some of our members. This is a pretty early start for some of our crew, so everybody got off work and made their way down, so appreciate for that. In the 114 years of the Stony Plain Fire Department, we've seen a lot of change that have come and gone. Our town has grown, the department's growing, and there's been a lot of people that have come and gone and served time. And it's my privilege to recognize 2 of those members tonight. I'd like to recognize Councillor Justin Laurie. Justin joined in 2013. And our second recipient, Councillor Harold Plechko, who joined in 1995.
All right, that was nice. As everybody's getting settled in, just on behalf of council and our residents, thank you very much for all the paid-on-call firefighters and full-time firefighters. Your commitment to the safety of our community is second to none. Through the many years I've been sitting as a councillor and as the mayor, the numbers that are shown by the Stony Plain Fire Department is exemplary for the type of service that we have. We have a hybrid model where we have a few paid full-time employees, and the rest are paid on-call volunteers that come in, and they get paid when they come in to support the full-time members. Right? And I've known many of the firefighters that have gone through our system. I just want to make that to acknowledgement to thank you and your families for the commitment. Many times you'll be sitting there having supper, and then the pager goes, and out the door, you leave everything behind, and you're putting yourself at risk for the safety of our community. And that's a special breed of person that wants to put the community first before themselves. On behalf of council, we are eternally grateful for the work that you do. So thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Right, members of council, moving back to our agenda. So we just finished number 2, which is adoption of the agenda, and we had kind of a special presentation. Before we move on to number 3 is the public input session. Starting today, as this is a start of our halfway mark, we just finished 2 years of our term, and moving forward to the next 2 years. Starting this evening, I'll be providing an opportunity for the deputy mayor to chair the governance and priorities meetings. Starting today and going forward into the future. If the deputy mayor is not here, then I will continue to chair the meeting. So this gives the ability for all members of council to get a little more experience, a little more understanding of chairing the meetings, and actually developing some skills that what they always say, if the mayor got hit by a bus, right, there's somebody to be able to take over and be able to lead the municipality until the next election comes through. I know that our current bylaw does not allow anybody else to chair the meetings except for the mayor, but that is slowly working on, and we'll get that adjusted in the future. So I can call the meeting to order, and at this point in time, I'd like to transfer the chair over to Deputy Mayor Meyer for the remaining of the meeting, and I will adjourn later when we're finished the meeting. Deputy Mayor, the meeting is yours.
Oh, thank you. And I will just do the move. Right. And I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity to chair, and I do appreciate the opportunity to gain some experience chairing. So with that, we're into the public input session. This is the time we allow members of the public to speak to council about anything that is not on the current agenda. Administration, has anyone registered to speak?
Through the deputy mayor, no, there has not been.
Okay, is there anyone in council chambers that would like to speak to council about anything that is not on the current agenda? I also notice your microphone works better than everybody else's. So seeing no one, we will proceed to presentations and delegations. This evening we have one presentation on our agenda. We have the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance. Are they here? That's you? Oh, sorry. Welcome to council chambers. There's a sign-in sheet. If you can sign in and introduce yourself to council, you may begin.
All right. Good evening to the Stony Plain Council and to the Deputy Mayor for having me here today, and special thanks to your staff for helping organize this. So yeah, it's a pleasure to join you. My name is Kelsey Norton. I'm a watershed planning coordinator with the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance. Oh, did that go off? Oh, just me. So within my job description, I have a heavy focus on lakes, very passionate about lakes, as well as I coordinate one of our sub-watershed alliances for the Sturgeon River. So today, I'm just going to kind of delve into kind of about NSWA. I don't know if that jumped, okay, maybe that's just me there. So generally, every kind of year or so, we like to reconnect with some of our key stakeholders within the watershed and just kind of speak to you about what's going on within the NSWA. So before I kind of jump in too farther into that, I do like to touch on who NSWA is as an organization. So we are a non-profitable charitable organization with a multi kind of sector board of directors from agriculture to municipalities. We have kind of that multidisciplinary voice as kind of that collective. We span from kind of industry as well as agriculture. We are kind of an arm's reach partner in the Water for Life strategy. So if you are many are aware of that, the 3 goals is the safe, secure drinking water, healthy aquatic ecosystems, and reliable water quality and water supply for the economy. So a big piece and the 3 directions within kind of broadly defined on what we do is knowledge and research, partnerships, and water conservation. So as you can see, it's quite a large watershed. We are one of 11 watershed planning and advisory councils. So for example, there's one for the Oldman River up in kind of Peace River as well. So this is our section here. Obviously a very treasured area from the headwaters that arise in Banff National Park and the North Saskatchewan River meanders all the way through kind of more of that heavily used area in the central, so obviously Edmonton an area where it winds and bends and keeps going all the way into Saskatchewan and eventually meets the South Saskatchewan River. As noted, we do have key responsibilities, and as a nonprofit, we definitely like to fund a lot of what we do. We do have some core funding, and our responsibilities, one that we've been using a lot lately is a collaborative spark. So we really like to initiate the conversation and bring people to the table. We are a driver in watershed assessment and planning, as well as we focus a lot on literacy, education, and outreach, and providing various types of tools and technology. So we have this little diagram here that touches on or highlights some of the projects that we have a focus on currently. So we have, obviously, kind of varying from like a riparian health action plan, the state of the watershed. We're looking into natural asset management. One of my key focuses is the regional lake stewardship piece, all the way to kind of the outreach and kind of communications around the digital watershed project. So yeah, this is just a quick depiction of what we're up to. So I wanted to touch on just some of the key ones that we've been focusing on that are basin-wide, so throughout the North Saskatchewan watershed. So I'm going to touch on the state of the watershed update. So this hasn't been done since 2005 and is one of our core responsibilities through the Government of Alberta. So the purpose of this is to gather as much information, data as we possibly can to assess aspects of watershed health and kind of use that as a baseline to determine what actions may be needed to improve the overall health. We are adopting the Freshwater Health Index for this approach. This is brought to you by Conservation International to score watershed vitality, services, and governance. So using this is kind of a key step in having something that's scalable, something that's replicable, which is a huge piece, as well it is scientifically supported and stakeholder driven. So this is a quick snapshot of what the output will be after the analysis is completed. So the central number in each circle is a composite score of all the indicators and sub-indicators identified in the outer ring wheel. This score provides a snapshot of the overall performance of each of the 3 categories. And color coding indicates higher scores and lower scores as well as data gaps for individual indicators and groups of indicators. This approach is directly connected to watershed management planning. And higher scores are potentially areas that could be celebrated and recognized, and lower scores are areas where there's data gaps and can start to prompt conversations. The next piece I want to touch on is engaging watershed residents, which is, a fun piece. Definitely like to touch on this. So the purpose of this is we're fortunate to have secured over the last 3 years funding to hire a student throughout the summer. So a key piece is that water literacy and having to raise that awareness and even interest as we all live, work, and play in a watershed and what it means to be a steward and a champion of the landscape. So we attend multiple events throughout the watershed, from the headwaters all the way to kind of the border there, and kind of an array from there's farmers markets to kind of ones that are brought on by municipalities to as well as partner events. And we also host numerous workshops. Recently, we had one on road salt management. We focus on lake stewardship as well. And another kind of upcoming one that we had was around drought, as I know that is kind of a hot topic recently. We also have lots of engaging webinars that we host an array of experts on a variety of topics, from fish, and we even had international, Conservation International hosted. So those are a great kind of piece to get that conversation going. As well, we have newsletters that we're starting to diversify and showcase different types of art and other activities going on throughout the watershed. And we obviously have social media as well, where we have our young students that love to input and keep it nice and fresh and engaging. So this is a quick picture of some of the events that were attended. So the bottom left one was the State of the Watershed workshop, as well as we attended events with lots of youth. I think the youth are the leaders and can be future stewards of the environment. And again, this is a great opportunity to get people together, start that conversation, and learn your place in the watershed. Another key project that we're working on is a wetland strategy for the North Saskatchewan watershed. So the purpose of this is to set a collaborative direction for the watershed to advance wetland management. As we noticed, there's lots of different entities that are kind of working in silos. So this went through a rigorous process of engagement with our sub-watershed alliances, as well as key stakeholders and experts from Ducks Unlimited to the Government of Alberta. And it kind of has that regional vision for wetlands. Some key things that stuck out were a need for, again, to break those silos, have that knowledge sharing, better monitoring, and kind of, develop a little more consistency towards wetland programs. So we're excited that this strategy was reviewed, and it was motioned for publication through the Sturgeon River Sub-Watershed Alliance. So we have finalized that, and we are excited to kind of get that out into the public. So in the future, we will look to bring that towards to different municipalities as a presentation. And an exciting one I loved to touch on is the Regional Lake Stewardship Project. So I was historically, I guess before even in this position, steward. I live around Lac St. Anne Lake, and I've been on their board of directors for over 5 years. So again, a huge passion and kind of connecting with other watershed stewardship groups was noted that there is very common issues, whether it be lake levels, water quality, or kind of recreation. It was identified as a need to have kind of that more regional impact and kind of bring everyone together. So again, we have kind of conversations where, what is the issue, and a big piece is the solution. So making kind of actionable items out of that. I look forward to completing some shoreline restoration projects. We have developed numerous amount of communications on our website. And as well, we look forward to a spring Lake Stewardship Community Practice Forum held in partnership with the Alberta Lake Management Society. And the last one here is the Riparian Health Action Plan. So this is one of our longest running projects here. So this, all this can be found on our website. So the purpose of this is a scalable assessment of riparian health. A lot of that information can be found on our riparian web portal, which some of you may be aware of. So we approached this, and it was a cost-effective assessment using satellite data. And it also set targets with our sub-watershed alliances for health. So we are kind of below our health objective. So how can we work together to increase the health of these special areas? So again, riparian areas are also known as shorelines of water bodies. I realize sometimes not everyone knows what that is. And this has been able to develop lots of tools and planning and decision making. And again, it's a great place for resources, and it also showcases projects that have been completed on the ground. So the next steps of this, we are working towards policy alignment. So we have hired municipal planning services to look at an array of municipal bylaws and see kind of what the wording and what their standards are at for riparian areas. So we're working towards kind of having definitions and consistency, and we're providing some suggestive languages that can be plunked right into new bylaws. And we're also in the process of looking at a setback advisor. So this is a key issue, is kind of the jurisdictional overlap with these really important areas, and how can we better manage them for development, use, and kind of recreation. So just wanted to touch lastly on the benefits that come from partnering with NSWA. So as noted, we are that collaborative spark plug, so we bring people together to talk about issues and, most importantly, solutions for watershed kind of pertinent issues, whether that be wastewater to shorelines, and kind of realizing that water is life, and it is kind of at the top of minds as we see a lot of different jurisdictions going through drought. And so I think, yeah, that opportunity to have the conversations, to network and share information is vital as we start to move towards kind of an unpredictability with water. We also do lots of grant support, so we've been able to obtain, specifically for the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance, over $500,000 in grant funding, and completed lots of technical studies and filled in lots of knowledge gaps. We also have expertise and project management, so we have kind of an array of staff that have definitely their expert knowledge within either riparian areas to obviously lakes and so on. And another foundational one is education and awareness. So we want to be a hub for information on kind of all watershed things and help provide that water literacy. So lastly, it would be great if you all were to stay connected. We have social media. We're definitely not on TikTok yet. So if you have Facebook, Instagram, and all that stuff, I suggest you follow us to stay connected on what's going on in the watershed and kind of at that bigger scale as well. And I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Members of council, do you have any questions for clarity, understanding? Councillor Hansard?
Thank you very much for your presentation. We don't border a river, I don't think, in Stony, but we have lots of stream courses and 2 underground aquifers that feed the streams, that feed the river, the lakes and the river. Is part of your presentation here tonight, perhaps, the initiation or the beginning of trying to have Stony Plain sit on a board or something with the Watershed Alliance?
We are fortunate to have Councillor Mayer that sits on the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance. So there is a steering committee as well as a technical advisory committee, but we are wrapping up one grant at the moment. So we had kind of a strategic planning meeting to see where a lot of the members were at and what kind of a need is going forward. So I think, again, that kind of bringing to the table to kind of see where everyone's area of focus is. Like for St. Albert, for instance, for instance, there we go. Like they have a lot of interest in wastewater, and then I was able to kind of connect that dot with Spruce Grove, who again doesn't have, you know, a lot of waterways in their area, but again they have a keen interest on wastewater and keeping that up to date and kind of those pieces there. So I think every one municipality or even group has obviously different focus areas, priorities, but we definitely want to stay top of mind. As you know, yeah, again, you have, still water management, even kind of in the crest, I noticed, there's fish, there's trees and so on. So I think that like natural areas piece still ties in. And I think, yeah, that coming to the table and realizing that, some other municipality may have approached an issue that you have as well. And it'd be great to, not reinvent the wheel and get after that solution sustainably and, yeah, cost effectively as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
if I may. Mr. Deputy Mayor, thank you very much for that clarification. Is that a new board? A new board? No, it's been there. I've never been on that board. You would think in almost, 19 years I might have been on it. So I'm very glad to hear that we do have representation for the Sturgeon River. And if you're on one board, it all sort of works together with the other Big Lake and North Saskatchewan River Board, right?
Because, yeah, big pieces, we want like the information that we do produce within like the Sturgeon River group to be kind of disseminated to other, municipalities and so on. Because I think that, that ripple effect is obviously effective in that way. And I think, yeah, we can learn like various different best management practices and learn from each other going in forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and thank you very much for your presentation. This is more of an internal question in regards to the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance. Do we still have a member appointed to that board or committee? Because I don't see it noted on our last assignments.
So, as mentioned, I was the representative. We haven't since our last organizational meeting.
So thank you for the clarity. And so I just want to follow up then on the comments from our presenter here this evening. You mentioned that that is kind of the avenue for the information to flow to the municipalities, pardon the pun there. But, so I'm just looking, if we don't have representation on that board, how do we get that information now?
Well, going forward, we have realized there's a lot of engagement fatigue and, again, different priorities for different municipalities, and we don't want to be pulling on too much. So since we don't have any core like project funding, I do seek to actually combine the steering committee as well as the technical group. And we have counselors, but we also have nonprofit organizations like Wagner and Alberta Conservation Association. And I think it's ideal to kind of bring everyone to the table in that sense. Like we also have planners, we have environmental advisors, so it doesn't necessarily need to be a counselor. It could be a staff member that has interest in watershed planning and can also disseminate that information as well. Because I think, for instance, even Onaway had a public works staff member, so I think it's out of keen interest perhaps, so.
Excellent, thank you very much. One thing that comes to the top of mind for myself is we have two heritage agricultural societies. And obviously agriculture is a huge proponent in regards to the watershed management and potentially some of the things that happen with that. So maybe that's a great avenue. I don't know if the Alliance has reached out to any of the agricultural societies, but maybe that's a good avenue that we could continue to communicate through here.
It has been noted that it was, like the Sturgeon group is very municipal focused and having those, pieces done right and well. But I have, kind of noted that it would be great to fill in more kind of that industry piece and like ag. So that would be, a good avenue for sure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a quick question. Thank you for the presentation. It's always very informative to have you come and present to us. I definitely appreciate the yearly drop-off of the information package, definitely for the North Saskatchewan and also the Sturgeon River as well. Appreciate that. That's how we get a lot of the information. And in terms of having a member sit on the Sturgeon River Valley Committee, yes.
A lot of acronyms.
Yes, we no longer appointed anybody. I think Councillor Meyer was on there for 4 years. His theme is to juggling with jobs and other commitments within the town. We felt it's best use not to have that committee member since we already have access to the information through the website and through our municipal neighbors like Parkland County that is actually part of the North Saskatchewan River. Okay. My question for you is that you were mentioning the comment about the state of the watershed, and you said that the last time that we did that was 2005.
Yeah.
So my question is, in terms of the weather changing and definitely the dry last few years, is when is the next scheduled revamp of that so that we actually have a better understanding of the data? Because 2005 is quite a few years ago.
So the issue when it had occurred in 2005 was there wasn't really enough data and there wasn't really a system and process as well. There isn't a standardized process across WPACs, which was noted as an issue. So we are adopting that freshwater health index because it is replicable. So we have now a lot of data that has to go through this analysis. So kind of plunking that in through, we call it HUC 6. It's a planning unit. We call them sub-watersheds, though, just for ease of kind of information there. So there has been interest to, do it obviously a little more often, and it being, more of an easier method that will be ideal in the future. There also has been requests to actually snip it to municipal borders, so municipalities can get a state of the watershed. However, that's not in the current scope, but we are really looking at opportunities in the future to do kind of something like that, so. Yeah, definitely won't be, as long as last time.
Appreciate that. And maybe just a suggestion is maybe there could be a collaborative grant that municipalities can pull together to fund that.
No, for sure, yeah.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor Choi. Any other further questions? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just another question in terms of kind of the lake overview and the different jurisdictions that is kind of mentioned here through your presentation. And in terms of kind of following the guidelines, what happens when municipalities or individuals do not follow the guidelines? Who enforces those?
So that's the tricky question because, water is federal and then it goes up into that riparian shoreline where it gets into the provincial and then the upland is municipal. So there is like an environmental hotline that can be called and Alberta Environment will come and assess the situation. They do it kind of on priority from what I've heard. So if there is a spill, obviously that's an automatic kind of get out and assess. But a big issue we find is recreation, so people speeding on lakes, as well as the removal of aquatic vegetation, which is illegal and requires a permit. So again, that's kind of, call that hotline, and then Alberta Environment should be out there. And I do believe municipalities have a role to play in that kind of educational piece, as a lot of people that do live on the shoreline just kind of think that they, own that whole kind of area. We've heard complaints like people are on my beach, but it's not actually their beach. So I think, the municipalities have a role in that, but realizing that some of the municipalities are quite small, so villages and summer villages, we find have a lack of capacity in trying to do that. So I have been trying to advance those educational opportunities for them.
Yes, thank you. And then I think I've written down here the Sturgeon River watershed. In terms of, I've been here for a long time. I'm old, so but I've been driving past and played in that river a few times. I noticed it has continued to shrink. And in some areas that there's not even flowing water anymore, it's just kind of a boggy area. So in terms of that, how do we get more water into that system? And I asked that question is because the town of Snow Plain has a dewatering allowance from the provincial government so that some of our subdivisions don't sink and get flooded. Is there a way that water can be pumped more often or to a targeted area to replenish that water?
So there's a common conversation happening on water quantity, and definitely not just for the sturgeon. A lot of our water bodies are very dependent, on snowmelt as well as rainfall. So that is the sturgeon, that is what feeds the water levels. And there is a piece of that I think very strongly about is wetland conservation, building wetlands, as well as the riparian areas I spoke to. Those are kind of the holders of water, so they will slowly release them. So I think, we want to save what we have and restore as well. However, when it comes to water, that's a big kind of permit and approvals piece, because I know there has been talk about diversions and so on, but I think it does get tricky for water quality wise, because the sturgeon sturgeon is very productive, so eutrophic, so it has lots of nutrients, but we don't obviously want to make it worse than what it is or anything, but the aquatic environment has adapted to those situations. So it would be kind of curious to see what would that look like, because I know in being on the Lake Stewardship group, some people want it high, so we can go boating and such, but then some people want it low to have the beach. So I think there's that issue on, where is that good level? However, near St. Albert, the Sturgeon River is actually put on a low water advisory. So Alberta Environment actually is going through temporary diversion licenses and looking at those a little deeper, as there is, agriculture as well as golf courses that pull water. So we want to make sure that we're doing that sustainably into the future. So that is, again, a kind of a government piece there.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, and I appreciate that clarity and understanding. And another thought that I've had in the past, and since you're here, you're the expert, in terms of development in our communities, definitely Town of Stony Plain, the old parts were developed when we did not have to address storm management issues. The new subdivisions have to address that. Seeing that the fact that the Sturgeon River is so low is because that enough snow melt, enough water, then is the development practice of creating storm management ponds causing that to be more depleted than it should be? Because if we did not maintain that, then the water would go a little bit faster, therefore we should fill the rivers more than it is to control the water and then let it go at a prescribed rate.
Well, I think that process of slowing and cleaning the water is really essential, and it does provide a little bit of that flood and drought mitigation. So early on in the season, if we see that quick melt, then it kind of just flows right through. But if we have these systems that kind of slowly feed the system, but with clean water, that's definitely the best approach. That is, a great question, because having water on the landscape is ideal, but we want to make sure that it's managed appropriately. Again, we don't want to damage infrastructure, housing, and stuff like that. But if we want to look at drainage, and I know Parkland County did an amazing drainage map, so I think starting to connect the pieces, because again, we've built probably a lot of different pieces and where they maybe shouldn't have been. So I think, that sustainable development going forward is huge, but I can't speak directly to that.
Thank you.
You got your full allotment of questions there. Councillor Hansard?
Thank you. Bear with me, please. I've always kind of wondered about this. We have lakes for sure, and some rivers. I don't know if it applies to stream courses, but we talk about, and in your report, you speak of riparian areas. Could you please explain if a piece of property borders a lake, for instance, some lakes have riparian rights on some properties that border them, some do not. What's the difference? What makes it riparian? And if the water's high, the landowner has less land, but they've got waterfront. And if the water's low, they have more land, but you probably can't walk through it or get to the lake very well. Could you explain that a little bit, please?
And that is a very tricky one. So no, thank you for asking. So there is, the riparian rights. So grandfathered in a lot of kind of those, pieces. So we're within their land. So they were grandfathered into owning that area. However, again, that does fall into different jurisdictions getting into that area. And there are setbacks guided from the Alberta government, but also in land use bylaws, municipalities can adopt stronger ones as well. So for developers to go through a more stringent process to kind of make room for water, as we always like to say, lakes and different water bodies go up, but they also go down. However, there's the high water mark, and you can kind of start to see the differentiation of vegetation. So there's submergent aquatic vegetation, emergent, and then kind of that upland area. And so you're kind of go down a gradient there, but there's like that little buffer zone that we like to call that's great for cleaning water, slowing water down. Up to 80% of our wildlife in Alberta depend on that for one stage of their life cycle. And yeah, I think it adds a lot of value to properties. But again, we see a lot of the, trying to flatline it. But yeah, I think we try to really raise the importance of those vital ecosystems. And yeah, again, that jurisdictional boundary. So
Thank you.
hopefully that.
Okay, any further questions from council? Seeing none, thank you, Mrs. Norton, for coming and presenting. Very informative. I would just add, Stony Plain does continue to work with our regional partners on the Capital Region, what is it called? Capital Region Parkland Water Commission, as well as our Aero Utilities, and of course, there is regional efforts ongoing with stormwater. So,
Okay.
but we look forward to anything that comes from you guys.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your evening.
I'm still on. Adoption of committee meeting. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the last Governance and Priorities Committee meeting minutes. Councillor Anderson, can I get you to make the motion, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair and Deputy Mayor. I'll move that the October 3rd, 2023 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be accepted as presented.
Okay, just looking around council, is any, you've all had an opportunity to read and review. Any corrections or errors, omissions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, what are we looking at? We're at 10 to 6. We'll take a break, 10-minute recess, and then we'll be back. Okay, welcome back, members of council and administration, and all that are joining us this evening. We will carry on with our agenda, which is 6.1. We have one business item this evening, emergency management update. Administration, please proceed.
Good evening, Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of council. So this evening, a quick emergency management update as the current legislation requires us to come to council once a year. We typically do this in May. However, there was some large events happening in May in Alberta, and it took this off our priority list for that month, and we brought it forward in December. So just a quick overview for council, as we've brought this into the chambers before, but just a quick overview for everyone in terms of oversight for emergency management is provided by the province of Alberta, the municipal affairs, and there is a new ministry that they're also including with some of the AEMA staff have moved over to. And with that, the Alberta Emergency Management Agency is essentially the division of the provincial government that we report to, and we get our audits completed by on an annual basis. We also have field agents assigned to our location, and so should something happen here, they would definitely come to our location or to our jurisdiction to assist us on an advisory or mentorship level. Provincial legislation, so there is an Emergency Management Act, and there is a local authority emergency management regulation, which a lot in the industry call a LEMER. Locally, we have the Emergency Management Plan, which we're required by legislation to have completed. It's a very intensive plan. It has risk management. It has risk assessments completed for our community. It has job descriptions, how we run the ECC, and how we perform our functionality related to emergency management should something happen in Stony Plain. The emergency management bylaw, based on legislation, we are required to have that particular piece of documentation. Ours is up for a review in 2024. The last adoption of the bylaw was 2019. The purpose of that bylaw is to identify the various committees, yourselves as council, and your roles and responsibilities. The administrative committee that operates the emergency management day-to-day business and what their duties are, how we do a state of local emergency, and the financial aspects of if an emergency was to happen here. So it's a bit of a policy document. It's also a bit of a step-by-step in terms of telling us exactly how to perform specific functions, which is required by the legislation. We also belong to CREP, which is a Central Region Emergency Preparedness Partnership. So the communities, 24 communities in the Edmonton region have all signed a mutual aid agreement of sorts, which basically says that if someone was needing some supports from a particular community, if we had the resources available, we would certainly provide those resources to them. And that's not likely to be a fee attached to that. So that could include fire apparatus, that could include graders, there's a whole gamut of what we have in terms of municipal equipment and staff that may be required to go and assist one of our partners in the Edmonton region. So that group meets every couple months and talk about emergency management as a whole in the Edmonton region. And then we do have the individual mutual aid agreements. So we do have one with the City of Spruce Grove. If we require some assistance from them, they would certainly come and assist us. We have a reciprocal, so we would go to the City of Spruce Grove and assist them, Parkland County and others. So that's the local oversight. So the emergency management plan that we have in place, it's reviewed annually by AEMA. We were supposed to have a CREP meeting today and host it in Stony Plain. That had to be postponed, and we had our AEMA reps coming out anyway today, so they called us this morning and said, can we still come and do your annual review? They were quite busy this year with, of course, the Alberta fires and floods, and they were also sent up to the territories in the Yukon to assist them with some of their emergencies. So Alberta has quite a robust emergency management system in the provincial government ranks. Compared to some of our other provinces and territories, we certainly get sent quite often. Our provincial employees get sent quite often to assist and support other provinces and territories when they're going through some disaster response. We also do have CEMA, which is down in Calgary, which is the Calgary Emergency Management Agency, which is earned and gained quite a bit of respect across Canada, and the Canada Task Force 2, which basically is a group of emergency response professionals that can get called upon from time to time to assist other jurisdictions to manage their emergencies. So what the plan does is it provides a guide for our municipal response to community emergencies, and particularly those that we've looked at and determined as a potential risk in our community. As an example, the rail is a bit of a risk in our community. We do have chemicals that go up and down those tracks on a day-to-day basis. If it derailed and no chemical spill, we certainly have, just simply, if all 4 of our crossings were impaired by the train, then that creates a bit of a logistic for us in terms of getting emergency apparatus and just people going in and out of our community. So it's on a lower scale. On a larger scale, if you get some of those hazardous materials and they do rupture with a train derailment, then certainly that's going to impact the radius of our community, as we do have residential properties that border and commercial properties that border our rail community. Just a quick snapshot of our 2022 and 2023. Typically, we would have done the 2022 update in May. So we're doing that today, and given that we're basically in the 12th month of the year, we also felt it prudent to let you know what we've done in 2023. So in 2022, we did conduct 3 training sessions with our emergency administrative team. We continue to train the organization to an ICS, so Incident Command Level 200. That's really what the industry or what we in the municipal sector have determined a base level for those that would work in our emergency coordination center. There is some talk at the provincial level, and speaking with the AEMA today, about them trying to provide some sort of standardization in terms of is it 200, is it 300 from an ICS, and they will provide more as that conversation continues to transact. Emergency Preparedness Week, which is in May. Of course, we play a big role in coordinating and bringing other agencies to that particular event. A lot of work went into 2023, and as you're aware, in May, that was a high emergency month for Alberta. And leading into the event, agencies were pulling out, and we did make a call later in that week that perhaps the event should not transact. But definitely put a lot of time into getting those agencies to commit to that event. We typically do have ourselves, other emergency response agencies, AHS, some of the utility companies, RCMP, search and rescue. So those that would provide some aid when emergency does hit our province or hit our region. We do an annual review of the emergency response plan. So again, just because we may have identified a risk 4 years ago, some of the mitigating factors of that risk may have changed. So we do have to continue to do that live update on an annual basis to ensure that the risk is still present to our community, has not changed, or the level of risk is not increased, which means our response to that particular risk would change, and our tactics and strategies related to that may change too. So as our community continues to grow, we continue to have to evaluate the risks related to our community and ensure that we're putting baseline foundational steps in place for us to try and mitigate. Of course, the foundational response to an emergency is fairly the same for everything, but depending on the scale of the emergency and the size of the emergency and the impact to the size of the impact to the community, our response would differ accordingly. So as an example, fire department goes out to, as you're aware, around 600 calls a year. Those are considered emergencies, but they're very much handled by the fire department, whether it be the truck or, depending on the size of the particular emergency that they may respond to, could be a fire chief in a command unit guiding and taking care of the situation, or it might just be the captain on the truck that may respond, or a lieutenant, or someone that's been placed in charge for that responding apparatus. So, and that's a baseline emergency response, or it could be higher, as we saw with the wildfires in Alberta this past summer, in terms of they had large-scale response in ECC, so emergency coordination centers, where they were bringing in work camps, resources that were required to deal with some of those challenging impacts of wildfire, such as evacuation of communities. Edson evacuated twice this summer. We did have that experience with Drayton Valley, and a message was sent out to head towards Stony Plain, and people felt that they were coming to some sort of reception or accommodation center here in Stony Plain, and Stony Plain was not aware. So things evolve very quickly. They move very rapidly, and we do work with the Provincial Operations Center to ensure that we understand and know what our level of responsibility is when some of these emergencies do happen. And we also have contacts with them to try and help and mitigate and direct and guide people to the right end outcome if they are evacuated from a community. So in that circumstance, as you're aware, and we did report back in May, we did stay out till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, making sure that the vast majority that had traveled from Drayton Valley were aware of the next stop was Edmonton at the Expo Center. So definitely that's part of emergency management. Their priority was getting people out of the community and safeguarding the residents as a whole. And then we jumped into a secondary role with providing them more information as that information became aware to us. So the partial ECC activation, that represents May, when we did have Drayton Valley coming into our community, and we did do some work related to that. And we definitely did receive a few phone calls related to reception centers and being able to host people from evacuated communities, and what our ability to do such was throughout the summer. So bigger conversation that we need to have at the provincial level in terms of Stony Plain has capacities, Spruce Grove, every community that is looking to, the province is looking to see if they can accommodate. There's capacity levels, and there's some theories around splitting those communities of 10,000 people into multiple communities, or finding, something like the Expo Center where it makes sense, and you got a one-stop shop basically for all of those evacuees. So There is some dialogue happening at that provincial level related to what the best strategy is related to evacuations, as we did see evacuees from as far as Northwest Territories coming to Edmonton and Calgary this summer also. So bigger conversation related to reception centers, hosting people, length of stay, services that need to be provided, what level of services should someone expect when they come. There's a whole issue around pets coming, medication. It all depends on what they leave their homes with. So it's a very complex and setup and challenge that certainly we need to have more conversation about. As Stony Plain standing up, our largest center is Heritage Park. We may have it set up for a trade show. How do we easily make that facility available? TLC is another larger facility, but they do have programming in there. So what options do we have that in our local region versus in Edmonton, and how quickly can we all convert our facilities to try and support some of these requests that are coming forward? In 2024, so we have spoken with AEMA to book some training for 2024. We will continue to host the Emergency Preparedness Week. It's a very important week in terms of communicating to the public relating to what they can do themselves to properly prepare for an emergency. Conduct a minimum of 3 training sessions. Continue at that 200 level. If the province decides that level is the right level or a higher level, we will adjust accordingly as the province releases that baseline training level. Continue to complete the annual reviews of our emergency response plan. If legislation does change, we will certainly react to that. And in 2024, not up there, but we would bring the bylaw back to council once we do administrative review. And if any changes are required for that particular documentation, we would certainly put that in front of council for debate and adoption. And again, as just communicated, that larger conversation piece with regional partners about, and the provincial government related to reception centers and how the province responds to those calls. So what can people do related to emergency preparedness? The most critical thing that people can do is ensure that they're taking care of themselves, their families, pets, for the first 72 hours. Typically, that is a time frame where emergency management specialists would say is the most critical in terms of dealing with the actual emergency. Typically, resources are allocated to dealing with the emergency versus being able to deal with the people that are being impacted by the emergency. So as many people as possible that can self-care for themselves in terms of that first 72 hours, that's very helpful. Of course, those that are directly impacted by the emergency services staff would certainly deal with and assist them. But there may be people that are on the fringes, not as impacted, that still are impacted to some level in terms of having to be without power, be without utilities, have to stay in their home for a number of days or hours, that emergency services will not be there quickly, but responding or delayed response. So that 72-hour kit, which we do have on our webpage under the emergency management section of the webpage, water, canned food, flashlights, anything battery operated if the power does go out. Difficult to charge your phone, so if you do have the power banks, there's ways in which you can charge your phone. They do say battery-operated radios. I'm not sure if we still have the ability for shortwave, but I believe shortwave are out there. There's enough hobbyists out there that can certainly get communication out. First aid kits for sure, bank machines, gas stations, those types of things. If you look and think about the last time you filled your car up with fuel, it requires electricity to have the pump go. If they have backup power, awesome. If not, then if you have a quarter of a tank of fuel there, then there could be some challenges in terms of you being able to get somewhere. So winter months, keeping your fuel tank full. Cash, bank machines, again, run on power. So we live in a very cashless world right now, so having the ability to pay for items in cash and small bills, because people likely don't have the change for it, certainly is something that people should consider. A lot of people might not put time into this, but if a fire's on the second floor and you can't get to the first floor, how are you getting out of your home? So simple things like that are things that people can do to ensure that their family remains safe. What is your second level access to the outdoors? Do you have to have a rope ladder in your closet so that you can hook it up to your eaves trough and jump down? What are the things that make your escape from your home the easiest for you? Or where can you go to ensure that emergency services staff, if they do have to evacuate you from your home, what is the easiest opportunity for them to do so if you can't walk out the front or back door? Medication prescriptions, often people leave in a rush, and some of those critical things are left behind. It's very difficult for emergency management staff to understand and have, and there's legislation around what we can't have drugs over the counter, pretty easy for us to get, but some of those more critical drugs that people may require in order to maintain their health, we certainly wouldn't have a stock of that anywhere in a reception center. And pets, through experience with the Slave Lake wildfires, a lot of people left their pets at home because they thought they were leaving for a couple of days and there were enough cat food, enough dog food and water for them, and that ended up being 2 weeks. So not that we would leave animals in a home for 2 weeks, but if take your animal with you, take the proper precautions and preparations with your animal, and because that turned into a large event. Drayton Valley had the same thing. We did have CPOs going into Drayton Valley and caring for pets in that community while they were evacuated for the time that they were this summer too. So certainly is one that sometimes I think we can forget fairly easily. The last thing that people can do is Alberta Emergency Alert. So that does provide critical alerts to our communities and to people that are signed up. There's a federal system too that the provinces are linking into so that it will impact TV, radio, and our staff are being trained on that particular system, and we would have the ability to cut into program TV to put out our very critical message. So there's things that we're trained on, there's permissions that we're provided, able to have. We have to be very mindful of how we and what steps we take and what buttons we push and permissions we ask for when we're putting an emergency alert message out ourselves. But definitely the provinces have their own, that links into the larger system. And if you had this downloaded on your phone this summer, it was going off quite regularly. So you can do it for the entire province. You can set the settings to follow you only in the regions that your phone happens to be, so it would ping off the towers and give you those critical responses. So a lot has been done related to this particular app and being able to notify people very quickly about emergencies happening in the location that they're currently in, which is similar to the model in the United States with FEMA in terms of if you're on vacation, you will get an alert if a tornado is going to rip through the place that you're vacationing at. So I think Canada is trying to catch up to that particular technology, and I think they're doing a good job with some of the improvements that have been made over the last 12 to 14 months. Mr. Deputy Mayor, that concludes the presentation from administration.
Thank you. Thank you, General Manager, for that presentation. Council, the floor is open for questions of clarity and understanding. Not seeing any. Mayor Choi.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Just inquiring about the Emergency Preparedness Week. So in the past, I've seen different renditions of that. I think the most notable one that I've witnessed was when we actually had a fire in little cubicles that was built, and then to show the differences of sprinkler systems, different kinds of apparatus to fight it. I think those visual aids help a lot, especially to our residents, in terms of what is the staff planning to do in May for the Preparedness Week.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, through to the Mayor, it certainly is in process right now in terms of planning. I do recall that we were trying to reach out to the sprinkler group of Alberta and asking if they can bring some props to show what sprinklers would do. What you're referring to is the fire department did build some structures and put some sprinkler systems in and charge those up. And yeah, the visual aid was quite good that year. So certainly they try to make sure that they've got some visual aid there to strengthen the emergency preparedness and the emergency message to those that do come down to the event. So we'll take that feedback and provide that to the chief.
Any further? Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you much, Deputy Mayor. So again, back to administration. I think during the presentation there was a mention of the quite a number of wildfires we've had, and definitely the emergency that's happening up north as well, and residents being sent to different areas without knowing what to do. So within the town of Stony Plain, if there was a emergency in the town of Stony Plain, we needed to evacuate, which forms of communication would the town actually use?
Your Worship, Mr. Deputy Mayor, through to Mayor Choi. Lots of avenues. We do have our own social media accounts, AE Alert, so Alberta Alert is another avenue that we would push out very quickly. Again, that is being built so that it would interrupt anyone's phone, whether you have the app or not. So we have that capacity and ability. We do have our social medias. We do have a local radio station that likely would be the best and quickest avenues for us to provide messaging. Depending on the circumstances and what was approaching or what was happening, as simple as deploying CPOs on their loudspeakers to go through residential areas to provide a message is another opportunity for us too. So depending on what was happening, depending on how much time we had, depending on the impact of what we were trying to mitigate or safeguard people from would likely dictate how we communicated that emergency or that information.
Good. Any further questions?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to follow up on that, and I appreciate the comments by the general manager. I think one of the things that I personally noticed, and even our community, is a lot of that misinformation happens when there is an emergency of where do they turn to. And I think one of the issues that I saw talking to individuals and the regional mayors that were affected was that the Alberta Emergency Management did not go out fast enough and soon enough and often enough to repeat the message, which left everybody guessing of where to go. And misinformation spreads faster than the truth. So I think having that, seen that firsthand, is I think we should use every means of communication, and we put out as many times as possible in a very short time, and continue to do that until the emergency is done, so that there is limited misinformation out there, so our residents are safe and they actually go to the proper places.
Your Deputy Mayor, through to Mayor Choi, certainly that's a good comment. I've lived through personal experience of that not working out favorably. But I believe with the app and with the staff that we have trained and a dedicated team that would be pushing that information out, I think we've got some systems built that certainly would put us on a higher end of being able to communicate at a higher rate or as quick as possible. You're right, social media tends to be quicker than anyone else, and it takes time for us to confirm where people might be being evacuated to, what the best location is, what the steps are. And I think establishing that this is where you get the critical information from, and this is how often it will be put out to you. I think those that are looking for the right information will certainly go to those avenues to look for the correct information. So not sure what other teams have, but I believe with the changes to the Alberta Alert, we certainly do have more opportunity to get messages out quicker and with more information, and certainly try and get it ahead or in advance of some of the social media posts that can move faster than the emergency itself.
Any further questions, Mayor Choi? Well, you're going to let somebody else have a turn? Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Through you to the General Manager, in regards to getting the information out there quicker, we can you remind me, we don't own the billboards at Heritage Park. That is Heritage Park, or who owns the billboards around town? The flashing big ones I'm talking about.
Your worship, through to Deputy Mayor, through to Councillor Loynes. The town does own those, so we have the ability to message. We do have an agreement with the chamber related to the one at Rotary Park, but certainly the town does have access to what goes up on those particular boards.
So would that be an option then as well, as to put information out there? Because that would be constantly updating as well, or is it a tedious process to get information on them?
Your Deputy Mayor, through to Councillor Loynes. Certainly, it would be an avenue, and it might be something that we would use later on in the emergency in order for critical information to be captured there. Likely, the Alberta Alert is the quickest way for us to get critical messages out. And as things progress, then we look at other avenues in order to provide messaging to people. So we do have our portable signboards that are out around the community, and certainly if we had, as we continued on after that 72 hours, likely those are the types of things that we would use so that the traveling motorists would certainly get that visual message along with the digital message.
Thank you. That's all.
Is there any further questions from council? You have your finger on the button.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just appreciate the information that's going on here, and I have lots of conversations with our residents, kind of reassuring that our staff do have a plan, and to address a lot of the issues like rain derailment, major car accidents, grass fires, etc. And I always end it by saying, our staff are really good at what they do, but if you see the mayor running, you better run too.
That's a good comment. Reminds me of, I used to work as an industrial firefighter, and they'd always say, oh, well, get the firefighters. And I went, I'll be running off this lease too, guys. But if there's no other questions, I do have a couple of questions. So I guess I just asked them. General Manager, during your presentation, you mentioned that there's no, turning to page 41, we do not receive any fee or monies back for participating in the Central Regional Emergency Preparedness Partnership. So I was wondering if you could just comment on that as well, sort of along the same lines. Do we, the bullet right under mutual aid agreements, do we, is there any compensation that is received there?
Through to you, Deputy Mayor. So 2 questions there. With the CREP group, the understanding is if someone requests a piece of equipment, we have the ability to provide that piece of equipment or staff. We would certainly do our best to do that. Whether a financial transaction occurred would be dependent on, I would likely say, the length of time, compensation from others for their particular emergency. So as an example, a large-scale emergency happens. Typically, disaster relief funding comes from the province of Alberta related to that. They typically would then send out to anyone that's supporting that emergency to track their hours. So when our fire department went to Slave Lake, when our fire department went to Wood Buffalo, hours were tracked for the staff that were up there, for the trucks that were up there. That was included. That was given back to the community, so Slave Lake and Fort McMurray, and then they provided a claim back to the provincial government related to the apparatus or equipment that was supporting them, and then they sent those funds back to the town of Stony Plain. Second one was mutual aid. Typically, there's not a cash swap related to that. Again, that would be dependent on the size of the emergency and the number of days or time spent with each other. We did have both Spruce Grove and Parkland County here when the Alliance Church burnt down. I would have to go back and confirm if there was any transaction there, but typically it's not the case with a fire response. We do have those mutual aid agreements in place for that reason.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And just sort of, maybe I guess along the same line, and I've asked a few people, but correct me if, besides the obvious issue, the idea of evacuating entire communities, that's a fairly new approach to the fire season? And like I say, besides the obvious risk to the community, is there other reasons that this is the approach we're taking now?
Through to the Deputy Mayor, evacuating people is simply done to mitigate risk and the harm that whatever is approaching a community may cause. So I think all of us can go back in our memory banks and with the Slave Lake wildfires, floods that have happened in southern Alberta, Wood Buffalo wildfires, perhaps people weren't given enough notice to get out of the community. And when you're evacuating even Stony Plain, 18,000 people, you're trying to say everyone needs to leave the community. If you give 30 minutes notice, can you, like 779, all our major highways would be moving at a snail's pace. So the more advance notice you can give people to evacuate, and sometimes that's why they happen well in what we would believe to be well in advance of having to make that call. When you have communities of our size, that call has to be made very quickly and well in advance of when something might happen. So a wildfire is coming into Stony Plain. We know it's going to hit at 9 p.m. at night. Well, we're not going to wait till 7 to tell people to leave. At noon, we're telling people it's time to go. And you're hoping that you can get all 18,000 people out there before. And typically speaking, if we're anticipating a 7 o'clock hit of the wildfire breaching our community, it could be 5. Winds could shift, angles of the wind can shift, the pace of the wind can shift. Everything is modeling it provides you the opportunity to make some decisions, but there are mitigating circumstances that could change that modeling very quickly. So we did see Edson evacuate twice, and some people may think that, nothing really happened in the town of Edson to a great degree, that the next time Edson is in the same situation, perhaps some residents won't leave. But definitely that was, it was about a 2-hour window that they anticipated it was going to hit. Based on the information they had, they made the call, they got people out, and it came about 2 hours sooner than they expected it to come. So it was a good call. It is logistically, it's a lot of energy and effort, and you are taking people away from their homes, and people do like their homes and they want to be in their home, and you're displacing them to hotels, gymnasiums, rec facilities, places that they're with a lot of people, and it's not a comfortable, it's not a nice situation for most people. So the call to evacuate it has to be very dire for someone to make that call. But when they do, it's simply because the alternative is not something that they're prepared to live with.
Perfect. So that's sounds like lessons, or we've learned lessons from how we operated in the past. Just one more question. In regards to ICS, I heard during your presentation that's basically a provincial standard, and we wouldn't necessarily go to try and next step it without their mandating it. Is that how I sort of hear that? Or would there, and sort of follow-up question would be, would there be a benefit to going above and beyond?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, to answer your question, ICS 200 to 100 and basic emergency management provides a base level of information related to the types of incidences that we would likely experience. When you get into level 300 and 400, ICS 300, 400, you're really dealing with some of the things that were happening in Alberta that we saw. And in order to retain that level of training, you have to be out actively using it. Also, the time commitment for staff to maintain and get to a level 3 and 400. Certainly we do look at the benefit analysis related to that, and the province certainly looks at that benefit analysis too. And I would suggest if our provincial events start to be more into the higher level types of incidences, then perhaps they would bump that up, because there's there's more frequency of people being in those more complex emergency responses.
Okay, thank you. And just one more follow-up to that. I'm going to just assume, so we do have, like I imagine the chief has a higher level of ICS.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, so there is requirements for, like the DEM as an example, has to be at a level 300. So there are positions that have to be at a specific level, and our plan and our people are functioning at that level.
Okay, thank you very much. It is a business item, so we will need a motion. Councillor Hansard, can I get you to make the motion, please?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I move that emergency management update be accepted for information.
Thank you, Councillor Hansard. Is there any debate or discussion on the motion? Good, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on then to council discussion. We'll start with Councillor Laurie.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paleckko.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Councillor Hansard.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I just want to say what a great job all of our staff and the people of Stony Plain did when it came to Christmas light up. I know we're calling it something different now, but to me, we're lighting a Christmas tree, so it's Christmas light up. It was wonderful, and the crowd was amazing, and it was colder than I thought it was going to be. Thanks to everybody for coming out.
Thank you, Councillor Hansard. I think they call it the winter light up, but I'm partial to Christmas, calling it a Christmas tree too. Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I just would like to echo Councillor Hansard's statements in regards to winter light up. It was great to see so many of our residents to be able to enjoy it this year, as the temperatures were much better than our previous year.
Thank you, Councillor Loynes. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just quickly, Kinsmen are hard at work getting donations collected and toys collected for the kids. I know that the staff here with our Toys for Tickets program have a tremendous collection out in the foyer as well. But we're down to the last week. Chatted with the Kinsmen today, and certainly still a need for financial donations, but also toys and that sort of thing. Again, 80 locations around town, and I think they collect until the 11th, and then they'll start to put packages together. So just a plug there for an amazing program in our community.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Mayor Choi, I'll let you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just want to echo the comments from fellow councillors about the great work that our staff did for the winter light up, for the Christmas tree. Definitely a huge turnout, especially with the kind of minus 7, 8 degree weather. A lot better than it was last year when it was like minus 30. Definitely appreciative. One of the concerns that I heard around just walking around the event and talking to people was that a lot of the sponsors ran out of food or ran out of cups. Was the participation this year greater than we expected in the last few years?
Your Worship, certainly I think with the warmer temperatures we expected higher crowds. We did reach out to the vendors and provided that. There were additional vendors this year also, but with any event, especially with the nature of that type of event, things do go quite quickly with the numbers that we had on Friday evening.
Okay, thank you for that. And just again, just echo the comments. Our staff did a great job, and I think if you don't know what a small town is, definitely come down to Stony Plain for the light up. Not only do we get to light the Christmas tree, you get to meet your neighbors that you haven't seen in a little while, everybody's busy, but to see the participation from the businesses and the volunteers to make that happen. It doesn't happen by accident. We can throw staff at it, but to get the amount of sponsorship and the volunteer hours, you would have to actually pay a couple $1,000 to get all that done. So definitely appreciate all the vendors that came out and supported us. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and so it's my turn, and I got nothing to share. You guys all said it very well. I'd just like to maybe say thank you to my fellow councillors for allowing me to chair. And then I have to turn this back over to you, Mayor Choi, to do the adjournment.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Meyer, appreciate it. Definitely great job. As you've seen, it is a little bit different when you're sitting in the middle chair trying to look both directions to see who's talking where and who wants to speak. But I'm pretty sure as we continue to expand and kind of grow this process of make sure the Deputy Mayor chairs the Governance and Priorities meeting will give every member of council the opportunity to learn and to kind of hone the skills a little bit because, things change at a blink of an eye, and definitely making sure that our organization is stronger by having that shared knowledge and shared ability to do the task that we're elected to. With that, we're adjourned.